get started today and let folks join us as they come in. So, thank you again. Thank you everyone for joining. My name is Hannah Holmes, pronounced she and her. I'm the program director here at PLEAC, the Public Legal Education Association of Canada. In the spirit of reconciliation, I do acknowledge that I'm located here in Toronto, Ontario, on the traditional territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Now, for today's Share and Learn webinar, we are joined by Martha Rands from PLEO, the Pacific Legal Education and Outreach Society in BC. Martha Rands, so happy to have you today. Thank you so much. Martha's been a lawyer for over 20 years. She's an advocate for public legal education information. I will pass over to Martha to introduce herself more fulsomely in just a moment. But I will say today's session, as you know, explores how LawForNonProfits.ca and its partners are helping organizations across Canada prevent costly legal challenges before they start, strengthening the nonprofit sector ability to focus on what matters most, which is serving communities, which I know a lot of us can relate to. So just a quick reminder, the webinar is being recorded. It'll be available on our website. And at the end, we'd appreciate if you could take a minute to fill in a very brief survey. But of course, and most importantly, feel free to ask questions anytime in the chat, in the Q&A for Martha, and we can get to those at the end. If there's anything pressing, we might get to it during. I'll keep my eye on it, but absolutely feel free if anything kind of comes up throughout to post that. That's enough from me. I will pass it over to you, Martha.
Great. Thanks so much, Hannah, and everyone for joining us today. And Hannah gave us a really good title, which is Resilient Nonprofits. And the raison d'etre of Law for Nonprofits is to ensure that the nonprofit sector, which is a key sector to the well-being of everybody, all Canadians, all folks, is an access to justice issue, and that strengthening the nonprofit sector has ripple effects. In that the stronger the sector, the more time can be spent on fulfilling missions rather than calling lawyers about a crisis. So now I have to figure out how to move this forward. So I we got a grant from the McConnell Foundation to expand across the country. And in the last year, we've been visiting various provinces. We've been to Alberta, Yukon, Nunavut, and Nova Scotia, where we met with also the plea providers from the Maritimes who shared an hour with me while I was in Halifax. And I wanted to start with these two quotes from Artie Freeman from the Definity Foundation, and mainly because I wanted folks to just consider these. And I don't know, perhaps what we'll do is we'll put them in a document that can be circulated. And these are observations from her recent trip to Denmark, and how the Danes approach capacity building and the role of foundations in capacity building. So one of the points she makes, and I think this is really, really important to what we're doing, is cross-sector collaboration for systemic change. And her point being that true systems change really means working across whether government, business, civil society, but also requires sharing. It means that we need to be more collaborative in what is a very large landscape and a very small population, relatively speaking, to make sure that we are meeting the community's needs. And I know we all are in various ways, so not suggesting we don't, but I just like the way this was put. And also this, she made a reference to ecosystem architecture and field building. And I put this in here because right now, in the midst of what is without doubt a very, very challenging fundraising environment, and we are all sitting on tenterhooks waiting for November 4th and the federal budget, there's real potential in collaborating and working on catalyzing what they're calling, knowledge infrastructures. And we are in the process. There will be an announcement coming from a foundation in Ontario that has created a fund with 10 other um, foundations to support the nonprofit sector networks. So I think that we have real opportunity to perhaps move the dial on public legal education and information as a field that could also be working perhaps more directly with other sectors within the nonprofit sector. Anyway, just putting that out there. So, what is Law for Nonprofits? It's a digital platform with interactive legal help guides, aka guided pathways, that answer nonprofits' most common legal questions. There were multiple lawyers involved, multiple programmers, and over the years, hundreds of nonprofit advisors. It's primarily was developed, is in development continually with the Justice Ed Society, and it's been funded primarily from, wait for it, yes, the Canada Council for the Arts, the Vancouver Foundation, and most recently, the McConnell Foundation. So, and I'm happy to talk more about all these steps. It began in 2014, actually, with an in-depth assessment of the legal needs of Canada's nonprofit sector. That is available on the PLEO website. And also on surveys and roundtables that were held with nonprofit leaders over the course of several years. We did over 300 workshops between 2016 and 2018 because of the change to a new Societies Act. So we were able to gather a lot of data and information. We started with a most viable product and then a prototype. But the MVP was created by the Center for Digital Media as a project of their students, and then the full site was developed over 21 and 20 to 23. We launched as LawForNonProfits.ca in June of 2024, and I'm going to show you some statistics momentarily. And primarily as a result of the interest from other provinces, we are building partnerships to enhance access with jurisdiction-specific information. We will be publicly launching the Law for Nonprofits Yukon in the new year, and we have others in the hopper. as we might say. So this data is from very early on in 2024, and it just shows how many unique users we had. Obviously, because we are in BC and a lot of the work was done with BC nonprofits, you'll see the numbers. And 20% roughly, and this continues today, are from Ontario, and then further on down the line. So we know that there's an appetite within the sector, and that's what we're hoping to do with this project. I wanted to this, the why the areas of law were chosen. The top issue, if you ask a nonprofit, is employment. If you ask a lawyer, they're going to say governance. And these days, what we're dealing with more are mergers and amalgamations and changing membership criteria to better control a society or a nonprofit. Also, human rights comes up a good deal, and CRA compliance in particular, working with non-qualified donees, which is a new part of the um, CRA compliance landscape. So I'm going to demonstrate a legal help guide for us. And much like the many guided pathways that are in the space, um, it takes you through a series of questions and helps to, for the society, whether it's a director or a staff person, to better understand what their obligations are. So this is a screenshot from the director's guide, and you see that it's a demonstration really of the user interface. We put a lot of energy into the user interface, and one of the advantages of working so extensively with arts organizations is that we had opportunities to get great feedback on the look and feel of the site. Um, Once you go through the assessment, it generates a to-do list. And this is an example of a to-do list um, from the director's assessment. Um, and in this case, they're being advised to review the duties of directors. And um, I'm just going to stop sharing this. Whoops, wrong one. And I want to share another screen if everybody's okay with that, which is the actual where is it gone to? Okay, sorry, I have to find it. Um, my apologies. I don't have the adeptness that my daughter does in roaming around when you have all these different tabs open. I have to now go and actually find it again. Now, let's see if I can do it. Um, hopefully we can edit some of this. Okay, can everybody see the screen? Here it
Looks
is.
good,
This
Martha.
is, yeah, so this is the beginning of the record keeping module. Record keeping was a component that was added to the Societies Act here in BC with the update in 2016. So that's why it has its own set of modules. So first you want to make sure the person is in the right place. Also, by the way, the avatar here, our little friend, um, we landed on this particular avatar because when we were doing the user testing on the MVP with the students at the Center for Digital Media, uh, they discovered that female gendered um, avatars are seen as less credible than male presenting avatars. So we tried to fall somewhere in the middle, just in case you're wondering. It's not me. Um, so in the BC context, there's the statement of directors and registered office. It should be in an official it is an official record of the society. I'm answering, I'm not sure. Up pops the to-do list. Um, I'm just going to answer, I'm not sure to any of them. And I'm now going to look at the results. And here's the results. Um, so you get an explanation of what each document is, and you also get sent to examples. So you can see what that statement actually looks like. And in the case of BC, it's a document that is generated directly from the registry. So this you can see that this is a certified copy. And then there's a distinction between a register of directors and a register of members, for example. And so we have a sample of that and so on. So the purpose of this tool really is to give people the foundational concepts so that if they do need a lawyer, they actually can ask very specific questions that may be answerable, for example, by our Ask a Law Student service. Or if they have a more complex issue, they will have a basic understanding of the underlying legal compliance arena so that when they do, if they need to see a lawyer, they will be able to better manage the costs. So I'm going to stop sharing this unless somebody wants me to play around with it. But I encourage you to go to it and play around with it. Um, oh, I will take us to the homepage, and you can also see that we post here what we're doing, various activities, and also there's a blog and a glossary. And we're going to be continually adding to the glossary. We're doing some fine tuning right now. So I'm going to stop sharing this and I will go back. Hopefully, we'll see if it works. Um, to the Nope. Going to have to apologies. Too many screens, too many tabs. Back to where we were. So now, one of the things that we did last year uh, was to try to develop an AI-enabled uh, chatbot, and we called it Ask Sam. And one of the things that occurred, um, it we I don't know if the folks at People's Law School are on the call. It's very similar to Beagle, except that in the instance um, when we started working with it, we went through multiple versions. And one of the things that we discovered, because we actually tested the chatbot against ChatGPT, on which it's based. And also a no-code platform, which we continue to play around with, which costs $300 a month. And unlike the chatbot, um, has accessed the entire site as opposed to just one section of the site, which is what we did originally. And we found that the reliability of the answers were actually better with the no-code platform than with either ChatGPT or the chatbot that we developed. It was a really good experience. And one of the reasons that we did it is because we also wanted to see how individuals, how the users in the sessions that we've been giving, so about 100 plus folks, more than that, 150 plus folks have evaluated um, the delivery model. So do you like the legal help guides, AI, or static website content, and so on? And what we discovered was that the majority of our users really like the legal help guides. And they felt that the legal help guides were more useful than the answers given by the chatbot. Though one of the interesting things that happened when we were in Halifax, or at least interesting to me, was, and I think we're all dealing with this to some degree, is that folks in that session talked about how they actually have been going to AI first to ask a question. And then the question is, do they go on and check it against a different source? And the answer to that question was no. So we are, I think, in a very challenging moment because of the ubiquity of these AI enabled um, chatbots, whether it's Meta's or Google's or whoever, ChatGPT. um, People are, as predictable, relying on those um, those outcomes rather than perhaps doing a deeper dive or trying to find our specific site. And, one of the things that came up when we were participating in the report that led to the Dauvergne report, which is a comprehensive report of research done by a group of students and Catherine Dauvergne from formerly the dean of UBC Faculty of Law. And one of the things that arises there is the extent to which um, these um, how do we reach our audiences? And pretty much everyone in the room said we need more money to do more digital marketing. And I do wonder whether a coordinated approach to disseminating our information collectively might enable us to direct traffic to the sites that have the credible information that people are seeking, and whether that might be more beneficial than building another AI chatbot and once again empowering the tech sector to own us. But that's a whole other conversation. So I think that's all I wanted to. This is the overview. Very interested in people's comments and questions, and pretty happy to answer just about anything.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Martha. I'm just taking a look. Um, Feel free, folks, to share any questions or comments in the chat or in the Q&A. I wanted to just start off, Martha, with just a comment that I received that says the insight around the gender of avatars was very insightful. I didn't appreciate this detail. Could make an impact on how information is either absorbed or trusted. Thank you for that tidbit of insight.
Yeah. One thing that, you know, we put a lot of energy into the user interface, and 9 of the 13 students were UX folks from all over the world. A lot of them were international students. And one of the things, they called themselves the prophets, by the way. One of the things that I think, if it were of interest to the community, we could probably dig up some of the observations from that period, because um, I think that those kinds of observations, they were a surprise to me, but just the comprehensiveness of the user design that we've been through here. And, you know, I mean, we can always make improvements to the design. That being said, it's probably one of the more successful aspects. It's why people keep coming back. I mean, that's the other thing is we're getting repeat visitors all the time. And it's because, I think, because of the user interface. And it's easy to use, which isn't to say anybody else's isn't easy to use. It's just, and it's seen as friendly. That was the most common adjective used. That was when Jess did some work on before we launched in 2014, 2024. So,
Interesting. No, that's insightful. I mean, I think that's a very clear when you go and visit the site that that's the first thing that even came to my mind, that it is very friendly. And
yeah.
And I perused the glossary a little bit too, and I think that's really interesting because I've heard from folks in the past that something like a glossary is something that they are interested in working on, but they don't know how to integrate it and the
Yeah,
up and stuff like that. But
yeah. And I think there's room to improve too. We had uh, it went through a number of different iterations before it landed with this approach. And we did have a plain language content director for a year who worked exclusively on the content with us. Um, and our law student at the time, who's now a lawyer, Sheldon Falk, was integral to the whole process because it was this amazing opportunity to get a brand new brain onto the material and its uses, uh, as opposed to a more senior brain like mine, which develops a certain level of complacency over time to not look things up again. So it was a very was yeah, very comprehensive and you know and still work to do.
yeah, that's the key. That's what I hear.
Yeah. And when it comes to AI, my question to folks at the beginning was, you know, could we just have an AI enabled um, legal help guide? And I think if if that were the direction, if there were funding to go in that direction, I think this is what CLEO is doing. Eric Bornman's project, um, organize supervising that, and we've had a lot of conversations over the years about how to use this tool. And I don't think it's as a general search tool. I think should be more like a virtual assistant slash, I'm doing the actual guided pathway, but I need to search for something more specific or at this sort of so that you can marry the two. And I think that will be the bonus. Um, it was a lot of work. There's 90,000 words in that on that site. Or actually, it was 90,000 words only on Societies Act. So when we created the RAG, the augmented um, repository of augmented I always forget what these acronyms stand for. Um, it was a lot of work. And that's primarily why we moved away from launching that publicly because we were doing way more work than we had the capacity for.
Interesting. Actually, and that sort of leads me to there's another question that I got sort of on the same vein that are you able to explain what a no-code platform is? Sorry, novice here. Is this more user-friendly for organizations getting started and exploring the potential use of chatbots?
Right. So, this came up because we were testing the Ask Sam, the one we created, and we wanted something to test it against. And Dave Nillette had been approached by Live Help Now, the people who are providing, who created a no-code platform. Basically, it means we don't have to do the coding. And what it does is it scrapes all of the material on our website, and then we have done some prompt customization with them to ensure that it can, for example, quote from it will spew out an answer, but that it will now refer to certain pages and you can go directly to those links, which is something that I think is really useful about AI chatbots and how they're used is that they have that capability so people can just click and go to the original content. And I'm sure PLS has lots of stats on how that's happening with Beagle. Um, and I think it's just a massive amount of work. And yeah, anyway, so the live help now costs us 300 US a month.
Mhm.
And so, and we don't have to pay for the Amazon Web Service. We don't have to pay ChatGPT. We don't have to do any of that, which is another cost consideration. And I do think there's a group in the UK that I've been following, Law Tech UK, and they have a comprehensive directory of all these different platforms. And there's a prof at one of the uh, faculties of law, Felix Stefik, and his view is no code is where things are going to migrate to because of the costs involved in bespoke generative AI. That being said, things are moving quite quickly. And the cost of getting a developer to work with you has also come down significantly. I think my where I've landed with generative AI generally is that we really need to be talking about the development of open source tools so that we're not throwing money at developers to do stuff without any investment in the sector. And I was really pleased to find out about logical outcomes in Toronto, and what they've been developing um, is a generative AI tool that can be used by Ontario nonprofits. And it has European standard privacy protection. So not even logical outcomes can see the data that is being generated by the nonprofits that are using it. It was funded by the Trillium Foundation. And it's still, but this is the first time that I've heard in a conversation about AI that uh, we're actually talking about meaningful open source. Because as we all know, who owns the software, who owns the means of production at the end of the day are really key considerations for this whole piece. And and I also think, while I'm on the topic of AI, that while I agree we need responsible, ethical AI, I think the vast majority of folks in this sector, but I'm speaking about the nonprofit sector particularly, but I think this is true more broadly, um, don't even know what we're talking about. And it isn't a question of digital literacy, it's a question of capacity. And I'm really concerned that funders are uh, uh, in love with technology that once again has us tethered to big tech, um, and not necessarily in ways that empower consumers of legal information to, well, be empowered. Um, so I think we need a more critical lens at some of this.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. And I've heard these sentiments sort of echoed similarly. So thank you, Martha, for bringing that up. I think that's really important. And for a lot of organizations to be able to do this sustainably and the capacity piece is a big it's a big one for many working in sort of this area. And I just wanted to say, no, we're just about a minute out. And so I just wanted to say my really quickly one last question, and then we can let folks go. But is there sort of any component or any element where you're going to be, or Pleo is going to be exploring materials or resources or anything that you shared today in other languages, or is that already available?
Well, we have an application to the Law Foundation of BC and for translation purposes. And also, we are very close to completion of the development of a Canada Not-for-Profit Corporations Act legal help guide, because what we discovered after being in Alberta, after going to Alberta, is that the vast majority of of Alberta lawyers who are in this business are incorporating under the federal act. And because it's online, because there's a number of provinces that don't have online incorporation, like Nunavut, for example. Um, though, yeah, anyway. They're incorporating under the federal statute. So we'll have that up and running. And I'd also be very interested in hearing from anyone that's interested in other provinces. We plan, on our work plan, we're hoping to be in Manitoba and Saskatchewan in the fall of 2026, or early summer, maybe May, June. So happy to get that ball rolling. That's what the grant is for. And yeah, and Northwest Territories as well, which the same legislation as, well, let's say this, Nunavut's current legislation that is anal, anal connected to our legislation is has been adapted from Northwest Territories. So they haven't, a lot of it hasn't been changed. So we would do the two at the same time.
Oh, that's wow, that's wonderful. I mean, that's very interesting to hear. And of course, if you're open to it, Martha, I'm happy to circulate your email with folks. If you're open to hearing, if folks wanted to sort of connect. I see just one question here. I will mention, Arlen, I'm located in the province of Alberta. Is there resources that we can tap in under the jurisdiction of Alberta?
Um, well, two things. One, you have integral.org, which exists because of a retired lawyer. Uh, and so they have a lot of resources on legal information um, for nonprofits. Also, yeah, I mean, Alberta is difficult right now because of the situation with the Law Foundation and the government. But absolutely, and the other thing I want to say, apropos of that, is actually that most of the content is pretty generic. If you actually go through it, our Employment Standards Acts across the country are very similar. So the principles of uh, you know, what should be in an employment contract are very similar. So I encourage people to have a look at what we have done, because it's actually going to be, it's not a huge job to massage, to adapt the content for provincial use. And the cost of doing that is, depending on the context, um, we're talking 10 to 25,000 per province or territory.
Mhm.
So it depends on the complexity. Ontario is going to be complex. if we were to do Alberta, it would be complex, but I don't think we're going to do anything in Alberta until the dust settles. And Jeff and I have talked about it, but you know, it's, I just am really grateful that we're not all in Alberta. Um,
Jeff has a few things and just for CPLE and stuff like that. Absolutely. I agree. And I just wanted to say, Arlen is grateful for the information, and then I shared the link, Martha, that you mentioned as well. So happy to sort of connect on that further. Thanks, Arlen, for bringing that up. That was a question I had in the back of my mind, but I know we're already past
yeah,
time. But Martha, thank you. I just want to say, just I know folks are still hanging on. Thank you for staying on a little longer. But first of all, Martha, thank you so much for the presentation today. We really appreciate your time, your thoughts, your insights. We hope folks sort of came away with quite a few things and some new learnings today. And obviously, if they'd like to connect with you a little further, that would be wonderful. And I'm happy to sort of help with that. And again, thank you everyone who took the time to tune in today. If you have questions, feedback, or wish to connect again, just reach out at any time. And yeah, have a lovely rest of your week, everyone, and see you next time. And I will follow up with an email